All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I am Claire Jones. If we haven't already met, I am an author, speaker, and mentor committed to creating a better world through inclusive stories and practices. And we are jumping on today for my Visionaries in Transition Facebook Live series, where I interview the amazing and inspiring impact makers in my network to discuss the transitions that have shaped our lives and businesses, because they are many. So if you're joining us, please like, comment, share below. Let us know that you're here. And today I'm talking to Karen, who is with Kite and Dart, and I'm so excited to get into it today. So welcome.
Thanks so much, Claire. I'm really excited to be here and getting to have another conversation with you.
Yeah. We were talking before we hit live. It's like, we like the informal conversations that we have, and it's just a matter of publicizing these existing conversations because everyone needs to hear them.
Totally.
All right, well, let's get into the backstory. How did you get to where you are today?
Yes, there's a lot. It's funny. I feel like it all makes perfect sense, and it's also just kind of meandering and stuff like that. So I think the first thing I'll call out is I went into college majoring in international business. And I'm going to call this out because it's kind of funny. I had this idea that I was going to climb the corporate ladder, and if I had to step on a couple heads along the way, that might be the way it needed to be. And I was going to the top, which I think is hilarious because that's literally the last. There's not even one bit of alignment for who I am in there. So it was kind of a funny, very not aligned start. But what I did find throughout college was that I did have a real passion for making a difference for people. I switched my major pretty quickly. And I still didn't have any real direction, but I managed to land myself in this leadership development program for social change makers. And that was the thing that was like, things started to click and make sense. Yeah. And I'm like, I could settle into myself. So that's really how the journey started. I did get a random corporate job for 1 year out of college. And it was a year was it. I was like, peace out. I did some work in the nonprofit arena, but then I decided I really wanted to work with youth. I'd always loved working with youth. So I went through the Teach for America program. I couldn't afford to go back to school to get my teaching credential. So I went through Teach for America, got started teaching. And then it's just kind of been a bit of a meandering journey. I taught for a while, and I'll say I've always had a bit of a love-hate relationship with teaching and with education. But then when I had kids, huge transition, that actually had me start my first business, which was a childcare business. So that was, a pivot in what I was doing. Did that for some time, thought I was going to start a nonprofit, ended up back in the classroom, back in school, and back to teaching, and did that work again. Of course, things change, and we did this strategic redesign of our school for personalized learning. And as super cool and amazing as it was also the beginning of the end, because it brought out some things that I just really disagreed with in the educational world and was like the nail in the coffin. So that launched me back into business again. So I started a business. It was a coaching business. I did leadership coaching, career fulfillment coaching, some facilitation of social impact and educational leaders. And then I came to Kite and Dart as a client and loved the work. We really started doing some identity work around here. And I kind of I was a client, and then I kind of had a limited partnership with Nate where it was kind of a side gig. And then the things that we were doing and the ideas that we were digging into around inclusion and belonging and equity got me really excited. And it kind of reignited that social change passion I had in college. And so I came over to Kite and Dart full time at that point.
Yeah, I absolutely love what you're talking about, because I've been traveling a very similar journey. I learned from a very early age that I did not want to work in a cubicle.
Yeah.
I was like, anti-cubicle life, please.
Seriously. I even with COVID and being in front of a computer on Zoom, because I did a lot of my work. I did a lot on the phone. I did a lot in person. I kind of was back and forth between those arenas. Sitting in front of a computer on Zoom is the closest I've come, other than my one corporate year, to cubicle life. And it's hard to sit in front of a screen all day. I don't know how people do it.
Yeah. And I think, there's also a deeper thing that we're talking about here in terms of like corporate/business world, because I think that corporate and business are kind of synonymous too at the end of the day. A lot of people believe it is versus social impact work. Like it seems like there's this dichotomy that our culture has convinced us of, like it's either business or social work. Like we can't do both. And I think we've both been on a similar journey of like, how can we do both? Yes, and
totally yes, and I mean, and honestly, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that I'd be sitting here because of that. It was like business was sort of the byproduct of I want to do what I want to do and I want to make a difference for people. It was the byproduct. And now business is literally the vehicle that I'm using for creating social change or social impact. So I love that you called that out.
Yeah, because I traveled a very similar path of going the nonprofit route and trying to do like social impact jobs within small businesses and stuff like that. But there's always that resistance there between like selling out and going corporate and staying true to our roots. Like grassroots communities are super important in this realm. And like, how do you manage the balance between making a livable wage and making a significant social impact?
So true. Yes. And I don't want that to be an either or. I want that to be a both and. Yes, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that begs the next question is like, what kind of transitions were the big ones? What were the ones that shaped you along the way?
Yeah. So I kind of called some of them out, like I feel like I've been so lucky. I think this is true for most people, but maybe for some of us, it's a matter of if we're listening or not. But I feel like there were a lot of synchronicities that sparked the big transitions, right? I think synchronicities happen all the time. Yeah. And I had some really big synchronicities happen that sparked some big transitions that have really shaped my journey. One of them was getting into that social change leadership development program. And it was really funny because that was a super random thing that I was hanging out with my college roommates, and one of them had an ex-boyfriend come over for dinner, and it's like, hey, what are you doing this summer? It was near the end of the school year. What are you doing this summer? And he's like, oh, I'm doing this program. And I'm like, wait, what? Like,
sign me up.
I want it. And he's like, oh, well, the application deadline's already happened. They've already picked the group. I literally was like, I don't care. Tell me who these people are. I went over to the office. I'm like, hi, I literally just found out about this program yesterday. I get that we're past your application deadline and you've already picked your group of people. I have to be in it. Is there any possibility of me being in this? Right. So I was like, I knew it in my gut. Right. And so that was really big. Motherhood, having some babies, that was a huge transition. And it really got at I want to be a great teacher and I want to be a great parent. And I have literally no idea how I can do both of those things at the same time. And I'm not trying to criticize anybody who continues to work out of the home when they have kids, but just for me, I couldn't do it my way. I was already sort of struggling with both. And so starting that first business was a way for me to kind of bridge that gap and be able to still work and make money and be with my kids and that kind of thing. And it was cool because I got to do some cool things in terms of using my expertise as a teacher in the capacity of running a childcare. I also taught other childcare providers. So I still feel like I was having that impact. I also got super burned out. So another transition, right?
Also a big one.
Burnout has triggered several of my transitions.
Mhm.
That one was triggered by burnout, and it was kind of funny because then I was going to start a nonprofit, happened to start a for-profit to help fund the nonprofit. And it happened to be involved in the construction industry, and the market tanked in 2008.
Right.
So that was sort of like, I don't really like this for-profit business so much. I don't really want the work it's going to take to start a nonprofit. So I went back in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And then out of the classroom, like that transition was sparked by being very, what's the word? There's a word I'm looking for. Just very like discontented. Is that the word? With the education system and what I was seeing and feeling like this no child left behind, data. Like, I just felt like dehumanization of youth that broke my heart. And so, I feel like everything I've done since then, whether it was my other coaching business or Kite and Dart, has been about the rehumanization of whatever industry and bringing in people, what they care about and who they authentically are. And how do we embrace more of who people are, and letting them like shine their light and share their gifts and be a contribution than that disconnection.
I love that you bring that up, because I think that really underlines everything that we've been talking about so far as like the people over profit concept.
Yeah.
Like that's why we went into nonprofit work in the first place. That's why we went into social impact work in the first place,
Yeah.
And it probably was just solidified in your mind, specifically within the educational system. But these are themes that we've both been playing with for most of our lives. It's like,
absolutely.
Why is profit so much more important than people in our culture?
Yeah. But back to what you were saying before, Claire, that again, not wanting that to necessarily be a both and that there can be people and profit, that we deserve to make money, and that wealth is an avenue towards bringing more equity and inclusion in the world. And there's also this question around like, what's enough, right? Like I don't want profit over people. I want people and profit, but the profit also has to be like, do we really all, of course, we're not all going to be billionaires, but why does anybody need to be a billionaire? Like, and I also want to make a lot of money. I'm okay with that. I would do some cool stuff with it.
I think people really underestimate how much $1 billion actually is. Like that's more than $100 million. It's more than $999 million.
It's heaps of money.
It's heaps of money. And then we have all these people across the world that have like $300 billion net worths. Like that's 3 times $999 million.
Yeah. And there are people in our world who don't have clean water to drink, or they don't have a roof over their head, or like it's the inequity is out of control. And everybody deserves dignity and basic human rights and enough money for those things. And so part of what really drives me, because I'm a business coach, a business consultant, is this: how can we use business to generate more wealth, and that the profit is a people issue in this case. The clients I work with don't have 5 years of capital in the bank as they grow a business. They're working to make it every month. Yeah.
And I mean, that's a paycheck to paycheck cycle. And I think we saw that, especially in the nonprofit world. I mean, there's so many similarities between the nonprofit world and entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Like overworked, underpaid, paycheck to paycheck. And I think that
Yeah.
makes sense why so many people transition from those two worlds and between those two worlds, especially if they're socially focused on that impact that their work is having.
Yeah. And I think education is like that as well too,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Yeah.
all three, right? Like social entrepreneurship, nonprofit, and education are all about the difference that you're making for the world.
Mhm.
And I think that we have an unhealthy norm, if you will, that if you want to do good, you have to sacrifice and you don't deserve to make as much. And I'm like, no. Why?
And I think we're really seeing that reflected in the labor stuff that we're seeing going on right now. And, there's a lot of talk about Gen Z nowadays because they grew up with the internet, and they learned how to make money on the internet outside of traditional job parameters when they were teenagers. And so they are completely disrupting the way that traditional job careership is unfolding. And I think you're right in the sense that there's this movement towards yes and with people in profit, and it's worth us paying attention to.
Yeah. I think you're right. And I also think it's interesting, and this we've had conversations about this before in this creative economy that you talk about. And it's interesting because so I have 2 Gen Zers as my kiddos, and several more in my extended family. But like, I also think there's a really interesting thing that's happening with that around the perception of work, which is part of what you're saying, but also like the perception of what it takes, right? Like there are all of these influencers and famous TikTokers and all these things, and they're getting all of this money, but it's also like, we don't all get to do that either, right? It's not necessarily easy, but I think there's it's kind of the same idea of like, oh, anybody can own and run a business. Anybody can be a professional football player. Anybody can be this influencer who's making a heap and tons of money on TikTok. And it's like, yes and no. I mean, there is a lot of competition and there is a lot of, I think there's some decent nastiness too. Like, I'm not saying everybody that's true, but there's some less than values driven things happening. So I also think I've kind of thought about it a little bit just because of talking about this idea of a creative
economy.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm like, what's the word?
And I think we're right in talking about the status quo is changing. The norm is changing. And so we see, I mean, of course, there's going to be pros and cons along the way of how the status quo changes, but I do think that we're seeing it change in real time.
Yeah, totally. And, I mean, part of, it's kind of interesting, right? Because, and I'm not really, here I am on Facebook Live. I'm not much on social media, right? I don't watch TikToks and I don't, occasionally my kids will watch them and I have to watch every single one of them like 10 times to like even catch what is happening. I'm like, what am I seeing?
It's a whole
my brain is not trained.
It's a whole art form.
Totally. My brain does not understand how to digest it, but it's like there's also, right, in the world, in the realms that I circle into, there's like a lot of people who are really looking at regenerative economies, and that's a change happening in real time as well, and absolutely COVID impacted that, but it's also been a longer conversation than that. And how do we create a new economy that is regenerative, restorative, that centers social impact, environmental impact, and those kinds of things. And that's a shift that I'm super excited about and constantly trying to learn more about.
Totally. And it makes me wonder, like, personally, what lessons have you taken out of all of these transitions and shifts?
Ooh,
like, what are the big ones?
Great question. You know what I really think the biggest one is like, I feel like there's so much in our society that tries to condition us to conform and to be the same and to, right? Like, be good at everything, and you have to care about the same things, you know, and you have to like do it all. And I just feel like there's this constant, like, kind of trying to shove people in boxes and keep them small. And to me, I'm like, I want every person to like relish in who they are and shine that out in the world and like be you. And that diversity of thought, diversity of demographics, diversity of skills and talents and passions, and like we need all of that diversity to have the creativity and innovation that we need to get ourselves out of this mess that we're in. And that all of the, so much of this traditional capitalist, racist, sexist, oppressive stuff is not going to get us there, that we do need to just lean into who we are and what makes us special and unique, to have the creativity collectively to get out of this. That makes sense. I feel like that's the biggest.
I mean, be you.
Be you. Be you. You know? Do you. Like, right. You know?
Yeah. Like,
and that's hard, but.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking of like creating your own box.
Yeah.
Instead of being shoved into a predefined box, is like, what is our own created container? Like maybe it's not a box, maybe it's a vase. You know, it can be all kinds of containers.
Yeah. It's so funny. I recently did a astrological reading, right? And I've done maybe like 3 in my whole life, but I did one recently, and she was saying that I have a lot of water in my chart, and I am no expert on astrology, period, but she was saying that I have a lot of water in my chart. And so she's like, wherever you go, like you fill space, you kind of change and fill space. And I was like, that's super interesting. So as you're talking about this idea of like create your own container, I'm like, I think I'm fairly unwilling to like, if I'm going to hold a container, it's like that container has to be able to change and morph and move and be a multitude of things all at the same time. Right. And I think that everybody, right. Like I work with so many clients who are like multi-talented humans. They're so multi-dimensional. And sometimes they feel like, and I don't want to speak for them, but this is the thing that they've shared with me, is that they feel like this doesn't make sense. I don't know how to make sense of this because it's all these different things. And it's like, it makes sense because it's you and it's your experience and it's what you care about and it's who you are. That's all that needs to be there for it to make sense.
Yeah. Inner cohesion.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it makes sense to someone else, because you are not them.
Yeah. But they're used to needing to fill it into these others boxes, whether they're another person's box or another like a systems box or a structures, whatever. But yeah. So
yeah. So what's one practice or tool you use to support yourself in this be you endeavor?
Good question. So one practice, what I'm going to say is that, and this is for me, it's because my practice
Sure.
isn't for everyone.
Yeah.
The thing I think I'm leaning into the most is that when I start to, I'm a really intuitive person.
Mm.
So whenever something starts to feel off, give myself space to just be. And it's all going to get sorted out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been going
So
through a lot of that lately.
yeah, like an example that's really funny that has to do with what sparked a transition was when I left teaching. I was so burnt out and was so just like, I don't even know what. And I was, I have a sister-in-law who was a life coach, and I was trying to like, be like, hey, can I do some work with you? I don't know what to do. I don't think I can keep teaching. And we just weren't connecting, whatever, time zone life.
Yeah.
And, but she had a couple years before that said, Karen, I think you'd be a great life coach. And I was like, I'm cool. I'm really happy with my job right now. I love it, you know? And so the fact that I couldn't connect with her, there was a day where we had a snow day here in Colorado and I didn't have to go to school. And I happened on this really random occasion, I didn't bring my school bag home with with my work computer and all of my work because I was supposed to have book club. So I didn't bring it home. And so I wake up the next day to a snow day. I don't have to go to work and I can't work because everything's at school. So I pulled out my personal computer and I started looking up life coaching programs, coaching certification programs. And that, right. And it was like, I had this day gifted to me of space, this day of space gifted to me.
Totally.
And that sparked it. So that was a long story, but space, I think, is really.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, like giving myself space. And like, I've started taking sabbaticals. I've started like the do not disturb function on my phone, and me are best friends now.
Right? Isn't
like,
it fantastic?
Right? Just having this time and space to yourself is just so fruitful at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, fruitful for your mind, body, soul, emotions, all of it.
Yeah. It is. And, you know, I'll bring up one other thing as you were saying that you made me think of, because I don't think we've talked about it here today, but I know you've done a lot of work around ritual. And I think that's why it was interesting when you asked the question, was I was sort of trying to think about it. And it's like, I feel like I have had rituals also that really help me, but they change. But space is the one thing that hasn't changed. Some of my rituals will change, but space there's a constant of allowing myself to be and taking a step back. And I don't have to have all of the gosh darn answers all the time.
Chores do not need to be done right this second.
Seriously.
Like the dirty dishes will still be in the sink 2 hours from now.
Yeah. Or maybe that email doesn't get answered for a few. I used to have this 24-hour rule. Nope. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the time that's what it is, but like, so, you know, where are those places? And it's liberating.
Yeah. I love that. All right. Well, anything you want to add before we wrap up?
I don't think so, but I would just say thank you. Like, this is fun. I always love our conversations. I think they're fascinating. And I just appreciate the opportunity to come on and chat with you. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, it's exactly why I started the series, because all of these conversations were happening privately. And I'm like, no, we need to bring more people into this, because this is juicy stuff that we're talking about.
Seriously.
Like, life-changing stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah. I love it. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, totally. And so, audience, we definitely encourage you to join us in this conversation and add your own thoughts and feelings and insights and lessons with us as well. We'd love to know how transitions have shaped you in your own lives, because we all go through them. Like, we are all constantly in a transition of some sort. So thanks to Karen for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
So in the meantime, please comment, like, subscribe, check out Linktree/Clairjoyance for all of my links. And then, Karen, where can people find you?
Yeah, people can find me. Our website is Kite, spelled out AND, Dart, group.com. And I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not on social media a whole ton, but I will go out to Facebook because of this and have a little interaction if folks are in there engaging. I'll make that little promise, but mostly my playground is a little bit more on LinkedIn.
That makes sense. And I'll add all of the links in the comments for easy access. But until next time, please remember that your authentic self is extraordinary. It is wonderful, and you owe it to yourself to create the elevated life that you know you are capable of. Take care, everyone.